My ranch wires looked ugly to her. By sunset, they looked necessary. When Marlene Whitcomb sent contractors onto my West Texas ranch, she thought she was cleaning up an ugly view. One cut line, one signed order, one ignored warning tag, and by sunset, Mesa Vista Estates was sitting in the dark. I did not yell. I documented everything. And if you like stories where the truth takes its time but still shows up, stay with me and subscribe. The first thing I noticed was not the cut line. It was the silence. No pump hum, no relay fan, no low vibration from the shed behind my machine barn. Just dead air sitting heavy over a 104-degree West Texas afternoon. I was under the hood of my backup generator, changing a filter with grease on both hands, when every sound I trusted died at once. The circulation pump stopped first, then the cooling fan on the west relay cabinet, then the little steady buzz from the control panel went flat. A ranch teaches a man to hear trouble before he sees it. When a windmill changes pitch, you look up. When cattle go quiet, you check the fence. When a system that has run for years suddenly stops breathing, you move. I wiped my hands on an old shop rag and stepped out of the barn. The heat hit me like an open furnace. Dust hung over the gravel road. Beyond the fence, Mesa Vista Estates shimmered on the ridge with its stone gates, blue pools, and perfect roofs turned toward my land like an audience. Then I saw the gray conduit. It lay across my dirt road in two clean pieces, cut straight through and dragged out of the trench like a dead snake. 3 men in yellow work shirts stood near it. One held hydraulic cutters at his side. Another looked at his boots. The youngest one, Tyler Briggs, kept glancing toward my relay shed like he already knew something had gone wrong. Beside them sat a white SUV with a Mesa Vista Estates decal on the rear window. Marlene Whitcomb leaned against the driver's door with a clipboard tucked under one arm and a stainless steel water bottle in the other. White visor, white sunglasses, pressed shorts. That tight little smile people wear when they think they have finally put you in your place. "Well," she said, bright as church bells, "your industrial junk is finally gone." I looked at her. Then I looked at the open relay cabinet near the fence. The indicator lights inside were dark. "Marlene," I said, keeping my voice level, "what did you do?" She pushed off the SUV and walked toward me like she was arriving at a board meeting, not standing on private ranch land beside a severed utility line. "The HOA voted last month to begin cleanup improvements along the Western View corridor," she said. "Your exposed equipment has been a visual issue for years. My equipment is on my property." "And visible from ours," she replied. Like that settled it. Behind her, Tyler shifted his weight. The cutters in his hand looked heavier than before. I stepped closer to the trench. The cut went through the cooling feed, the sensor bundle, and the auxiliary control line. Whoever marked the work had not known what they were looking at, or they had not cared. Marlene lifted her chin. "You can relocate the rest somewhere less offensive. Mesa Vista homeowners paid good money for clean hill country views." That was when I stopped feeling angry. Anger is loud. This was colder. I looked past her toward the subdivision. 147 homes sat under the heat haze, every air conditioner likely running hard, every pool pump ready for evening load, every garage freezer, kitchen appliance, gate motor, and clubhouse system depending on a feeder that had been weak for years. Marlene thought she had cut my power. She had not. She had cut part of the permitted relay system that kept her own neighborhood from overloading during days exactly like this. Tyler finally spoke, low and nervous. "Mrs. Whitcomb, I told you those lines looked active." Marlene snapped her head toward him. "They were abandoned conduits." "They were not abandoned," I said. Her smile thinned. "Then maybe you should have made them less ugly." The other 2 contractors would not look at me. A hot wind moved over the pasture, carrying the smell of dry cedar and warm dust. Somewhere inside the dead relay shed, a backup alarm tried once to chirp and failed. I took out my phone and photographed everything. The cut conduit, the trench, the contractors, the white SUV, Marlene standing beside the damage with her clipboard. She frowned. "What are you doing?" "Documenting." "For what?" "For the people who are going to ask why Mesa Vista lost power." Her face tightened, but only for a second. Then she laughed once, short and dismissive. "That sounds like a threat." "No," I said. "That is a warning." I stepped around the severed line and looked directly at her. "Marlene, did anyone from the utility company approve this?" Her face barely moved. "The HOA does not need outside approval to correct a visual nuisance affecting community standards," she said. "That line was not in your community. It was visible from ours." That was Marlene Whitcomb's whole religion in one sentence. If she could see it, she believed she could control it. I looked back at the cut conduit. The gray casing had been sliced so clean, the copper sensor bundle inside looked like nerves exposed under bone. The cooling feed was worse. That loop ran back through the pump control cabinet, then into the load balancing relay behind my machine barn. Without it, the system could still limp, but it would run hot. Too hot, if the subdivision hit peak demand before field crews reached us. Tyler Briggs lowered the cutters. "Mr. Calder," he said, voice tight, "we were told this was abandoned." Marlene turned on him. "Tyler." "No, ma'am," he said, softer now, but still talking. "There were warning tags. They were old tags. They had current inspection dates." For the first time, Marlene's smile cracked. "Not much, just enough." I pulled my phone out again and photographed the warning tag dangling from the open trench. "County Utility Review. Inspected April 12th. Do not disconnect without authorization." Marlene saw the picture and stepped toward me. "You are trying to intimidate my contractors. I am trying to preserve evidence." "For what? A cut plastic pipe?" I almost answered. Then I stopped. A man learns, after enough years around bad decisions, not to waste truth on somebody still enjoying the mistake. So I turned away from her and walked toward the relay shed. The building sat behind my machine barn, low and plain, with sheet metal walls and a locked chain-link perimeter. Most folks driving by saw silver cabinets, cooling fans, and conduit runs. Ugly, maybe. Industrial, sure. But behind those cabinets was the reason Mesa Vista Estates had survived every summer since 2018 without cooking its own feeder. I built that system because of June. 8 years earlier, during a county-wide heat wave, the power failed for 14 hours. June had been in the kitchen when I found her on the floor, skin burning, lips pale, the old wall thermometer stuck at 96 inside the house. She lived, but I never forgot the sound of that silent air conditioner or the way a home could turn dangerous when the grid quit. After that, I stopped trusting promises. I was a retired rural power systems engineer. I knew weak infrastructure when I heard it. Transformers whining too hard at dusk. Lights dimming when pool pumps kicked on. Feeders carrying more load than the original plans ever intended. Mesa Vista had gone up fast, one luxury home after another, while the West feeder stayed old and overworked. So I built my own protection first. Permits, schematics, county review, utility coordination. Nothing hidden, nothing illegal. The relay shed tied into my irrigation pumps, backup water tanks, and emergency transfer controls. Later, Owen Rusk at the regional utility office asked if my system could help buffer feeder swings during extreme summer load. It was supposed to be temporary. A year, maybe 2, until the utility upgrades came through. That was 6 summers ago. The irony was sharp enough to taste. Marlene had spent 3 years calling my system an eyesore, while her residents enjoyed steady power because that same eyesore took stress off their feeder when the heat got mean. Inside the shed, half the monitor board was dark. The backup display flickered once, then came alive on reserve battery. I leaned close. West feeder support. Degraded. Cooling loop. Offline. Thermal compensation. Reduced. I heard June's footsteps behind me before she spoke. What happened? I turned and found her standing in the doorway, one hand braced against the frame, eyes already on the monitor. June Calder did not scare easily. That was one of the reasons I loved her. But she knew that board. She knew what those warning colors meant. Marlene cut the cooling loop, I said. June looked past me toward the trench, then toward Mesa Vista on the ridge. How hot is the feeder? Not bad yet. She heard the word I did not say. Yet. Outside, Marlene was still talking, her voice floating through the open shed door. This could have been avoided, she told the contractors. If Mr. Calder had cooperated with aesthetic standards years ago, we would not be here. June's jaw tightened. She still thinks this is about appearance. That's all it ever was to her. The monitor chirped. A small yellow indicator appeared beside the west feeder load curve. Not failure, not even close. But it had started. I picked up the wall phone beside the monitor and dialed the number I had not needed in months. Owen Rusk answered on the third ring. Regional Operations, Rusk. Owen, it's Travis Calder. His tone changed immediately. What's wrong? I looked through the shed window at the severed line lying in the dirt, at Marlene's white SUV, at the subdivision shining in the heat beyond my fence. The HOA just cut my west cooling loop. Owen went silent. Then he said very quietly, Tell me they didn't touch the sensor bundle. I closed my eyes for half a second. They did. The line stayed quiet long enough for June to look at me. Then Owen said, Travis, how long ago? 20, maybe 25 minutes. Start logging everything. Photos, names, timestamps. Do not let anybody repair, move, or clean up that cut until we document it. I already started. Good, he said, because if peak load hits before we get there, Mesa Vista may not hold. The words landed heavy, but they did not surprise me. They only confirmed what the monitor was already whispering in yellow light. I hung up and stepped back outside. Marlene was near the trench now, giving instructions to the contractors like she was supervising flower beds instead of standing beside a damaged utility system. One man was rolling up caution tape he had no right to remove. Another was loading cut sections of conduit into the bed of their truck. Leave those pieces where they are, I said. The older contractor froze. Marlene turned slowly. Excuse me? That conduit is evidence. Her mouth tightened. Evidence of what? A cleanup project? Of trespass, property damage, and maybe interference with permitted utility infrastructure. That finally took some shine off her face. For 3 years, Marlene Whitcomb had made my ranch her favorite problem. It started with a complaint about my faded red barn, then the fan noise behind my machine shed, then the water tanks, then the generator housing, then a letter claiming my relay cabinets created an industrial visual burden for Mesa Vista homeowners. Every complaint came on HOA letterhead thick enough to feel expensive. Every one ended the same way. County inspectors came out, looked over my permits, checked the fence line, and left without writing me up. Marlene never learned from that. She only changed the words. Last winter, she started calling the view behind my ranch the Western View Corridor, as if naming it gave her ownership. By spring, Mesa Vista's newsletter was full of glossy promises: cleaner sunset views, restored hill country charm, removal of visual clutter, higher property values. None of it mentioned that the so-called clutter sat on my deeded land, behind a fence my father had stretched before Mesa Vista existed. Tyler Briggs looked from me to Marlene. "Mrs. Whitcomb, maybe we should wait until the utility people get here." "We are not waiting," she snapped. "You were hired to complete a contracted job." I looked at Tyler. "Who marked the conduit?" He swallowed. "We used the map the HOA gave us." "Show me." Marlene stepped between us. "You will not harass my contractor. I am asking for the document that sent him onto my land. This land borders our community." "It borders it," I said. "It does not belong to it." Her chin lifted. That same boardroom expression slid back onto her face. "Mesa Vista has easement interests along the western boundary." "No, it doesn't. You don't know what the board has voted on. A board vote is not a deed." The words hit harder than I expected. One of the contractors looked up. Tyler's eyes moved to the fence, then the gravel road, then the white SUV. He was beginning to understand what Marlene refused to. She opened her leather folder and pulled out a printed sheet with highlighted lines. "Western View Restoration Project," she read, voice sharp. "Authorized removal of abandoned external utility clutter affecting Mesa Vista Common scenic enjoyment." "Who signed it?" Her eyes flicked down. I already knew. She held the paper closer to her chest. "The board approved it." "Who signed it, Marlene?" For half a second, the only sound was the dry rattle of wind through the fence wire. Then Tyler said quietly, "She did." Marlene turned on him with a look that could have cracked glass. I lifted my phone. "Tyler, I need you to say that again." He stared at the hydraulic cutters in his hand, then set them down in the dirt like they had burned him. "The instruction sheet was signed by Mrs. Whitcomb," he said. "We were told the lines were abandoned and outside active service." Marlene's voice dropped cold. "You work for my HOA." "No, ma'am," Tyler said, barely above a whisper. "I work for Briggs Landscaping. And I told you those tags looked current." That was the first real crack in her control. I stepped around her and photographed the sheet before she could fold it away. Not perfect, but clear enough to catch the project title, the description, and her signature at the bottom. She snatched it back. "You had no permission to photograph board documents. You brought it onto my property after cutting my line. My community has rights. Then show me the recorded easement." She said nothing. That silence mattered. Behind us, the relay shed alarm chirped again, louder this time. Tyler flinched. Marlene did not. She still thought the fight was about authority, not electricity. I looked toward Mesa Vista. The roofs shimmered in the heat. Somewhere over there, people were getting ready for a Friday night party under lights they assumed would stay on. "Marlene," I said, "you need to call your residents and tell them to reduce power use." She laughed, but it sounded forced now. "I will not panic homeowners because you want to dramatize a landscaping dispute. This stopped being landscaping when your crew cut a live system." She stepped closer, lowering her voice so the contractors would not hear. "You have been a problem for this neighborhood since the day I took office. Ugly buildings, noise, dust, wires, tanks. You live like the county stopped developing in 1970, and my residents are tired of looking at it. My ranch was here before your residents, and now it affects them." I held her stare. "By sunset, it may affect them more than you think." Her face hardened. "Is that another threat?" "No," I said. "It is still a warning." The alarm from the relay shed sounded a third time. This one did not stop. I left Marlene standing by the trench and moved fast toward the shed. June was already inside, one hand on the metal desk, eyes fixed on the monitor. The yellow warning had climbed into orange. West feeder strain was rising earlier than it should have. "What changed?" she asked. "Cooling loop is offline. Sensor bundle is cut. The system is guessing instead of measuring." That was the kind of problem people outside infrastructure never understood. Bad data can be worse than no data. A relay system can compensate for heat, but it cannot protect what it cannot read. I hit the manual log key and saved the timestamp. Then I opened the incident file on the shed computer and started entering notes. 4:31 p.m. visual confirmation of severed west cooling conduit. 4:34 p.m. HOA President. Marlene Whitcomb present on property. 4:36 p.m. Contractor. Tyler Briggs states warning tags were visible. The alarm kept screaming until I muted the speaker. The orange light kept flashing anyway. Outside, Marlene was trying to regain control. "This is private property theatrics," she told the contractors. "Do not let him scare you." Tyler did not answer her. I walked back out with a clipboard of my own, the old metal kind I kept for pump inspections. Marlene noticed it immediately and narrowed her eyes. "What is that?" "Incident record. You are not authorized to record HOA business. You are standing on Calder Ranch after cutting my line. This is my business now." I turned to Tyler. "I need your full company name." He hesitated. Marlene snapped, "You do not have to answer him." Tyler looked at the open trench, then at the warning tag I had photographed, then at the dead relay shed behind me. "Briggs Landscaping and Site Cleanup," he said. "Tyler Briggs. Who gave you the map?" "Mesa Vista HOA. Who handed it to you?" He swallowed. "Mrs. Whitcomb." Marlene stepped forward. "This is harassment." "No," June said from behind me. Her voice was not loud, but everyone turned. June walked out of the shed slowly, holding one of the permit binders from the relay desk. She had found the right one. Blue cover. County Utility Review stamped across the front. "This is harassment," June said, tapping the binder once. "When you ignore permits for 3 years because you don't like what they look like. This is evidence." Marlene's face flushed. "Mrs. Calder, with respect, this matter is between the HOA and your husband." June looked at the cut conduit. "That line helped keep my house safe too." That shut Marlene up for half a breath. I opened the binder and turned it toward Tyler first, not Marlene. "See this inspection stamp?" He nodded. "See the system map?" He leaned in, careful not to touch the page. His face changed when he saw the conduit route marked in red. "That's the same line," he said. "Yes." He stared at the trench like it had just become deeper. Marlene recovered fast. "That document is private. The HOA was never supplied with that map. The utility authority has it. The county has it. Your board could have requested it before sending cutters onto my land." She lifted her clipboard. "We relied on our approved restoration plan. Then give me a copy." "No." I looked at her for a long second. "You already showed it to me." "I showed you nothing." Tyler's eyes flicked toward the passenger seat of the white SUV. That was all I needed. The leather folder sat open on the seat. From where I stood, I could see the top sheet. Western View Restoration Project. Section C, Removal of Unsightly External Conduit Systems. Marlene's signature was visible at the bottom in thick blue ink. I raised my phone and took a picture before she realized what I had seen. She spun around. "Delete that." "No." "That is an internal HOA document. That is an instruction sheet ordering work on private property." She reached for my phone. I stepped back once. Not fast, not dramatic. Just enough to make the boundary clear. Do not touch me, Marlene. The contractors froze. For the first time, she seemed aware there were witnesses other than people she controlled. Her hand dropped. June's voice stayed calm. Travis, call Owen again. I did. He answered before the first ring finished. Tell me. Orange warning. Sensor data degraded. I have photos of the signed HOA work order. Contractor confirms they were given a map by Marlene. Good. Preserve all of it. I am sending 2 field trucks and a supervisor. Nobody repairs that line until we inspect it. How far out? Best case, 40 minutes. I looked at the ridge. Mesa Vista was quiet, bright, untouched. Too quiet. Owen, peak load starts before then. I know. That was all he said. Marlene heard enough to understand the ground was shifting under her. She looked from me to June, then to the contractors. We are leaving, she said. Tyler did not move. Marlene turned. Now. The older men started loading their tools. Tyler bent to pick up the hydraulic cutters, then stopped. He looked at me. I'm sorry, he said. Marlene's head snapped toward him. He kept his eyes on me. I told her it looked active. I know, I said. The relay shed alarm, even muted, flashed orange through the open door like a heartbeat going wrong. Marlene climbed into her SUV and started the engine. Before she shut the door, she looked back at me with all the anger she could not afford to show in front of witnesses. You will regret making this dramatic. I looked down at the cut line, then west toward her perfect subdivision. No, Marlene, I said. You will regret making it official. Her SUV tore down the dirt road, leaving dust over the severed conduit and her signature sitting in my camera roll. For a few seconds, nobody spoke. The contractors loaded their truck in silence. Tyler Briggs kept looking back at the trench, like a man walking away from a fire he had helped start. When his truck finally rolled out, he did not wave. He just stared through the passenger window until the dust swallowed him. I went back inside the relay shed. The monitor had climbed deeper into orange. West feeder load was rising early. That meant Mesa Vista residents were already coming home and lowering thermostats against the heat. It meant pool pumps, garage freezers, electric ovens, gate motors, clubhouse lights, and backyard sound systems were stacking load on an old feeder without the cooling support Marlene had just cut. June stood beside the desk, reading the numbers without pretending to understand all of them. How long? She asked. Depends how hard they pull, and if they have that party tonight. I looked toward the ridge. Mesa Vista's clubhouse sat near the top of the development, all glass and stone, with a pool deck that glowed blue at night. Marlene had been advertising her summer sunset social for 2 weeks. Wine, barbecue, outdoor lights, live music, the kind of event people host when they believe comfort is guaranteed. She picked the worst night possible, I said. June did not answer. She did not have to. At 5:18 p.m., Owen called back. Field trucks are moving, he said. But I need you to isolate what you can without touching the damaged section. I can reroute through secondary compensation, but it will run hot. Do it. Log every step. I switched the relay system into emergency degraded support. The cabinet fans kicked unevenly, trying to cool circuits that no longer had proper flow. The monitor flickered, adjusted, then stabilized just enough to buy time. Not safety. Time. At 5:31, my phone buzzed with a blocked number. I answered because I already knew. You need to stop frightening people, Marlene said. I looked at June. She raised her eyebrows. Who did I frighten? You called my vice president. I called the utility office. Well, Paula just received some vague message from regional operations about load reduction. She is asking whether we should postpone the event. You should. That is not your decision. No. It is physics. She exhaled sharply. You really do enjoy this, don't you? I looked at the flashing orange warning light. Marlene, tell your residents to go home. Tell them to raise thermostats, shut off pool systems, stop non-essential load until utility crews arrive. You expect me to announce that our power may fail because you say so? I expect you to act like a president responsible for people. Her voice hardened. My responsibility is to protect this neighborhood from men like you who think rusted barns and wires are more important than property values. The words settled between us like dust. June almost died in a blackout, I said quietly. Marlene paused, but only for a second. That has nothing to do with Mesa Vista. It has everything to do with why that system exists. Your personal trauma does not give you authority over my community. No, I said. But your HOA title does not give you authority over my land. She hung up. At 5:44, the first red edge appeared on the feeder graph. June saw my face change. What? Thermal strain just crossed warning range. Outside, the subdivision still looked perfect. Sunlight flashed off windows. Golf carts moved along clean streets. I could hear faint music starting near the clubhouse. Then Owen came over the shed speaker line from the utility patch. Travis, we're seeing the same thing here. West feeder is climbing too fast. How far out are your trucks? 25 minutes. I looked at the severed conduit through the open door. Too long. The relay monitor beeped again. The line jumped. Orange pushed toward red. June set her hand on the desk, steadying herself. For one sharp second, I was back in that kitchen years earlier, kneeling beside her in dead heat, promising myself I would never again stand helpless while power failed around us. But this time I had logs, photos, permits, a signature, witnesses, and still, none of that could cool a transformer. At 6:03 p.m., the decorative lights around Mesa Vista's entrance flickered once. Just once. Most people would not have noticed. I did. June did. On the speaker, Owen stopped mid-sentence. Then he said, "That was the first voltage dip." I looked through the open shed door toward Mesa Vista. The entrance lights had steadied again, but the monitor told the truth. The west feeder was no longer bending. It was fighting. "Can you reroute more from your side?" Owen asked. "Not without risking my pump controls. Do it only if you can hold safe limits." That was the line men like Owen and I understood. You save what you can, but you do not burn one system trying to rescue another. I shifted a small part of my ranch load off the relay bank and onto diesel backup. The generator behind the barn coughed, caught, then settled into a hard, steady growl. June moved without being asked, switching off the house load from the transfer panel. She knew the drill. We had practiced for storms, fires, and heat, never for an HOA president with a clipboard. At 6:09, Mesa Vista flickered again. This time it was not subtle. The clubhouse lights blinked. The pool deck went dark for half a second, then flashed back blue. Music skipped across the ridge like a record catching on a scratch. A cheer rose from the party, people thinking it was funny. Owen did not laugh. "West Transformer 3 is approaching trip threshold," he said. "Field trucks? 10 minutes out." The monitor answered before I could. Red spread across the west feeder graph. At 6:14, a hard metallic pop rolled over the ridge. It was not loud, but it had weight. The sound of a protection relay doing exactly what it was built to do, sacrificing service before equipment cooked itself dead. One street on the western edge of Mesa Vista vanished. Porch lights gone. Patio lanterns gone. Upstairs, windows black. A clean strip of darkness cut through the subdivision, while the rest of it kept glowing like nothing had happened. June whispered, "There it goes." My phone rang. "Marlene." I answered, but did not speak first. "What did you do?" she snapped. "I did nothing. Our West Street is out. I warned you to reduce load. You threatened us. I have witnesses." "Marlene, listen to me. Send people home, shut down the clubhouse, turn off pool pumps, outdoor lights, anything non-essential. You are not giving orders to my neighborhood. I am trying to keep more transformers from tripping." She spoke over me. "If this is retaliation, I will have Sheriff Barrett at your gate before dark." At that exact moment, the second protection warning flashed on my monitor. "Owen," I said toward the speaker. "South Branch is spiking." "I see it." Marlene kept talking. "You have been waiting for a chance to punish us because the board finally stood up to your mess." "No," I said. "Your board cut into a live stabilization system. That is your story." Another pop came from the ridge. Deeper this time. Half the clubhouse went black. The music died mid-song. The pool lights failed. A few seconds later, the security gate at Mesa Vista's front entrance froze halfway open, its amber warning light blinking weakly, then dead. Marlene stopped breathing into the phone. Then I heard voices behind her. Confused, angry, children calling for parents, someone asking why the air conditioning had stopped. "What is happening?" she asked. Her voice was smaller now. "The feeder is protecting itself," I said. "What does that mean?" "It means it is shutting sections down before the damage becomes permanent," the monitor screamed. Not a chirp, not a warning. A full alarm. Owen's voice cut through the speaker. "Travis, final sequence is activating." I stepped outside. The remaining lights across Mesa Vista pulsed once, twice. For one strange second, the whole subdivision glowed brighter, every stone wall and palm tree and glass patio lit against the red Texas sky. Then everything died. All 147 homes disappeared into darkness. No pool glow, no porch lamps, no decorative gate, no clubhouse music, no air conditioner hum drifting across the ridge. Just black houses under a hot evening and the sudden sound of dogs barking from yards that had never known real dark. Marlene did not speak. I stood beside June on the gravel drive, phone in one hand, eyes on the dark ridge. I did not smile. That mattered, because inside those homes were families who never signed Marlene's work order, elderly residents with medicine in refrigerators, kids scared by sudden darkness, people who thought HOA politics was just paint colors and mailbox rules until it reached the wiring behind their walls. June touched my arm. "You okay?" "No." Marlene finally found her voice. "How long until it comes back?" I looked at the severed conduit lying in the dirt, then at the orange-red monitor flashing behind me. "That depends," I said, "on how much damage your cleanup project just caused." Headlights appeared on the county road below. Utility trucks. Fast. Amber lights flashing through the dust. Owen's voice came from the speaker, grim and steady. "Do not let her leave before we document everything." I looked toward Mesa Vista's dark ridge, then back at the road. The first utility truck turned through my gate with amber lights strobing over the fence posts. Two more followed close behind, throwing dust across the pasture and over the cut conduit like smoke after a wreck. Owen Rusk stepped out before his truck fully settled. He did not greet me. He walked straight to the trench. One look was enough. "Who cut it?" he asked. I pointed toward the ridge. HOA contractor, on Marlene Whitcomb's order. Marlene's white SUV came back 10 minutes later, moving too fast for the dirt road. She braked near the relay yard and climbed out with her phone in her hand, face tight, hair loose under the visor. "This is unacceptable," she said. "My residents are sitting in dark homes." Owen looked up from the severed line. "You authorized this removal?" Marlene glanced at his utility badge, then at the workers behind him. Her tone changed, but not enough. "We authorized removal of abandoned visual clutter." Owen stood. His face had gone flat. "Those were not pipes." The words hit harder than shouting would have. Marlene blinked. "Excuse me?" "They were active cooling and sensor conduits tied to a permitted stabilization system. You cut the west feeder's support during peak load in a heat event. I was never told that. You were never supposed to touch it." That silence finally reached her. Utility crews moved around us with floodlights, cameras, thermal scanners, and evidence tags. One technician photographed the warning tag still hanging from the open trench. Another logged the cut ends of the sensor bundle. Owen pulled up the relay history on the shed monitor and set it beside regional operations data from his tablet. The timeline built itself in front of us. 4:37 p.m. Cooling loop lost. 5:41 p.m. Feeder strain crossed warning range. 6:03 p.m. First visible voltage dip. 6:14 p.m. West transformer, 3 protection trip. 6:22 p.m. Full feeder cascade. Owen turned the tablet toward Marlene. "This is the record." She stared at the graph but did not seem to know where to put her eyes. "That cannot all be from one line," she said. "No," Owen replied. "The feeder was already weak. But your order removed the support system, keeping it stable. That is the difference between a sick man resting and a sick man pushed downstairs." June made a quiet sound beside me. Not amusement. Recognition. Marlene looked at me then, and I saw the fear arrive. Not guilt yet. Fear. "You knew this could happen. I warned you. You should have stopped them. They were your contractors, on my land, cutting before I even walked out of the barn." Owen stepped between us before the argument could turn useless. "Mrs. Whitcomb, we need the work order, the contractor map, the board authorization, and every communication related to this removal." Her control came back on instinct. "You can request those through proper HOA channels." Owen's eyes hardened. "County emergency operations is already involved. This outage affected public safety. You can cooperate now, or they can subpoena it later." That was when a pair of headlights turned slowly through the gate. Not utility. A dusty pickup. Tyler Briggs got out carrying a manila folder against his chest. He looked pale under the floodlights. Marlene's face changed. "Tyler, what are you doing here?" He did not answer her. He walked to me first. "I made copies before we left the shop," he said. "Emails, maps, the instruction sheet, the signed authorization. I figured somebody should have them before anything disappears." Marlene stepped forward. "Those are company documents." Tyler held the folder tighter. "They show what you told us to cut." Owen reached out. Tyler handed him the folder. Under the floodlights, Owen opened it and read the top page. His jaw tightened. I saw the same title I had photographed earlier. Western View Restoration Project. Remove unsightly external conduit systems affecting Western scenic enjoyment. Authorized by Marlene Whitcomb, HOA President. Owen passed the first page to a technician who placed it in a clear evidence sleeve. Marlene's voice dropped. "You have no right to use that," a new voice answered from behind her. "They might not. But I do." Sheriff Cole Barrett stepped out of his cruiser, hat low, face calm and tired. His deputy stayed near the gate, body camera already recording. Sheriff Barrett looked at the dark subdivision, then at the severed conduit, then at Marlene. "I got calls from half of Mesa Vista and one from County Emergency Management," he said. Now I'm standing on Calder Ranch looking at cut utility infrastructure and a signed work order. Marlene folded her arms. Sheriff, this is a civil matter. Barrett took the folder from Owen and read the signature line. No, ma'am, he said. This stopped being a neighborhood complaint when your board sent cutters onto land you don't own. He looked at me. Travis, I'll need a formal statement. You'll have it. Then he looked at Marlene again. And Mrs. Whitcomb, until we sort out who authorized what, nobody from your HOA sets foot past that fence without written permission. For the first time all day, Marlene had no answer. Behind her, Mesa Vista remained black. Sheriff Barrett took my statement under the floodlights, while Owen's crew worked around the damaged conduit. I gave him times, names, photos, and the video clip of Tyler saying the warning tags were visible. June handed him copies of the permit binder pages. Owen added the utility incident number and the outage timeline. Marlene stood by her SUV with her arms crossed, pretending she was still in control, but every new document pulled that control farther out of her hands. By 10:30, the subdivision looked less like a luxury neighborhood and more like a storm zone without rain. Portable generators coughed in a few driveways. People sat outside because their houses held heat like closed ovens. Hotel rooms in Burnett and Marble Falls were already filling up. A deputy radioed in that 2 elderly residents needed help getting to a cooling shelter. That was when Marlene's phone started ringing and did not stop. At first, she answered with her president voice. We are coordinating with utility officials. Then it became shorter. No, we do not have a restoration time. Then sharper. No, Mr. Calder did not shut off your power. By the 4th call, she stopped answering. Sheriff Barrett watched her decline another call. You may want to go speak to your residents before rumors do it for you. Marlene looked at him like he had insulted her. My board will handle communication. Owen did not look up from the tablet. Your board should start with the truth. Her face closed. She left 20 minutes later, slower than before. I thought that would be the last I saw of her that night. It was not. At 11:18, Paula Keene called me from an unknown number. I knew Paula only by sight. HOA vice president, quiet accountant, always standing 2 steps behind Marlene at community events. Mr. Calder, she said, voice low, is it true the cut line was part of a permitted utility system? Yes. And Marlene had the work done on your side of the fence? Yes. A long silence followed. In the background, I heard people shouting inside the Mesa Vista clubhouse. Paula exhaled. She told us it was abandoned clutter outside active service. Who is us? The board. Most of us. She said the land along the western corridor was subject to HOA scenic enforcement because it affected common enjoyment. That is not a legal boundary. I know that now. The way she said it told me she had known enough to be afraid, but not enough to stop it. What do you need from me? I asked. She lowered her voice further. I have emails, board minutes, complaints. She pushed this project through without a full vote. She told homeowners the county had no objection. Did the county ever review it? No. Then call my attorney, I said. Rachel Boone. I'll text you her number. Paula hesitated. Mr. Calder. Residents are furious. She's telling people you engineered this because you hate the subdivision. I looked across the field at utility crews kneeling beside the line she cut. Then give Rachel the emails before Marlene rewrites the story. After the call, June stood beside me in the shed doorway. Paula flipped? Not fully. But she is scared enough to tell the truth. That is usually where truth starts. Near midnight, Tyler came back a second time. This time he brought Warren Bell in the passenger seat. Warren was 68, a retired rancher, lived south of Mesa Vista, and had known my fence line longer than Marlene had known the county existed. He climbed out stiffly and pointed toward the damaged trench. That line is inside Calderland by at least 30 feet. Sheriff Barrett raised an eyebrow. You sure? Warren gave him a dry look. Cole, I helped set the original corner posts in 1989. That shifted the night again. Now it was not just damaged infrastructure. It was documented trespass across a known boundary. Warren walked Sheriff Barrett to the fence by flashlight and showed him the old survey markers, half buried but still visible. Brass cap, stone pile, rusted T-post lined with the original ranch boundary. The sheriff photographed each one. Mrs. Whitcomb claimed scenic easement rights, Barrett said. Warren snorted. A view is not a deed. By 1 a.m., Mesa Vista was still dark, and the anger had moved west. We could hear it from the ranch sometimes. Distant voices near the clubhouse, car doors, a generator starting, then dying. Not panic. Worse. A community discovering its leader had spent years protecting appearances, and one afternoon endangering the thing that kept them comfortable. At 2:12, Rachel Boone called me. I just got Paula Keene's first email batch, she said. Travis? Marlene did not just overstep. She buried objections. Tyler's warning. A board question about property lines. A note from Paula asking for county confirmation. Marlene replied, and I quote, "We cannot let rural holdouts dictate the value of Mesa Vista." June watched my face as I listened. Rachel continued, "Do not speak at that emergency meeting tomorrow unless I am beside you." They're holding one? 8 in the morning. Community Center. Paula forwarded the notice. I looked toward Mesa Vista's dark ridge. Marlene had wanted a cleaner view. By morning, the whole neighborhood would be looking at her. The Mesa Vista Community Center was running on backup fans when June and I walked in with Rachel Boone at my side. The room smelled like stale coffee, hot carpet, and people who had not slept. Residents filled every chair and lined the walls with folded arms, dead phones, and faces that had gone past anger into exhaustion. Marlene stood at the front table in a pale blazer, trying to look composed. Paula Keene sat 2 seats away from her, with a laptop open and a stack of printed emails under one hand. That told me plenty. Owen Rusk started the meeting because utility people just waste time during outages. Last night's failure was a cascading thermal overload on the west feeder, he said. The cascade accelerated after active stabilization infrastructure on Calder Ranch was damaged. A man near the back shouted, "Say that in English." Owen nodded once. Your neighborhood lost power after the HOA's contractor cut support lines that were helping keep your feeder stable. The room turned. Not toward me. Toward Marlene. She stood quickly. That is an oversimplification. Mesa Vista relied on professional contractors and approved beautification authority. Rachel stepped forward before I could say a word. Approved by whom? Marlene's eyes narrowed. This is an HOA meeting, and your HOA's action damaged my client's permitted utility infrastructure on private land. Rachel placed a printed aerial map on the front table. Then a copy of my deed. Then Warren Bell's signed boundary statement. Then the county utility permit. She laid each page down like a hammer, quiet and exact. The fence line sits 30 feet east of the damaged conduit, Rachel said. Mesa Vista has no recorded easement over that strip, no maintenance right, no scenic enforcement right, no utility authority, no access license. Nothing. Marlene's mouth tightened. The western corridor affects common enjoyment. Rachel looked at her. Common enjoyment is not a property interest. A murmur moved through the room. Owen connected his tablet to the projector. Thermal graphs filled the wall. Yellow, orange, red. He pointed with a laser. 4:37 p.m. The cooling loop goes offline. 5:41 p.m. Feeder strain crosses warning range. 6:03 p.m. voltage dip. 6:14 p.m. first protection trip. 6:22 p.m. full cascade. He changed slides. A photo of the cut conduit appeared. Then the warning tag. Then Marlene's signed work order. Nobody spoke. Marlene did. We were told it was abandoned. Tyler Briggs stood from the side wall. Every head turned. "No, ma'am," he said. His voice shook, but he kept going. "I told you those tags looked current. I told you we should stop. You said the HOA had already decided." Marlene's face drained. Paula Keen closed her eyes briefly, then opened one of the printed emails. "For the record," Paula said, "I asked Mrs. Whitcomb on May 18th whether county confirmation was needed before the Western View restoration project proceeded. Her written reply was, 'We cannot allow rural holdouts to dictate the value of Mesa Vista. Move forward before Calder creates delays.'" That one landed like a door closing. A woman in the second row stood. "My mother's insulin spoiled last night." A man beside her said, "We spent $400 on a hotel room because our house was 96 degrees inside." Someone else said, "You told us he was the problem." Marlene raised both hands. "I was protecting property values." Warren Bell stood slowly near the back, hat in both hands. "Your property values stop at your property line." The room went silent. Sheriff Cole Barrett stepped forward from the wall where he had been standing beside a deputy. "My office has opened a report for trespass and property damage," he said. "The work occurred on Calder Ranch. The documents shown here will be attached to that report." Marlene looked at him as if he had betrayed her. "Sheriff, surely you understand this is a civil dispute." "No, ma'am. Civil disputes do not usually come with cut active utility support and a subdivision-wide outage." Rachel slid one final document across the board table. "This is a preservation notice," she said. "The HOA is to retain all emails, texts, minutes, contractor communications, insurance correspondence, financial records, and enforcement documents related to this project. Destroying or altering anything now will make your situation worse." Paula picked up the notice first. Marlene did not touch it. That was when the power shifted completely. Not because anyone yelled, because the paper had spoken, and every page said the same thing. Marlene had crossed a line she did not own, cut a system she did not understand, and left 147 homes sweating in the dark. Rachel turned to the full board. "Now," she said, "we talk about damages." The word changed the room. Until then, people had been angry at Marlene. After that, they started looking at the board table like a bill had just been placed in front of them. Rachel did not raise her voice. She did not need to. "My client will be filing claims for trespass, destruction of private property, interference with permitted utility infrastructure, emergency repair costs, loss of operational capacity, attorney fees, and any related damages caused by the HOA's unauthorized work." Marlene stood so fast her chair scraped the floor. "This is extortion." Rachel looked at her like she had heard worse from smarter people. "No, this is notice." Owen added the next piece. "The utility company will also issue cost recovery for emergency response, field labor, feeder stabilization, thermal inspections, and temporary load management. The outage was preventable." That sentence hit the residents harder than any graph. Preventable meant hotel bills. Preventable meant spoiled food. Preventable meant elderly neighbors sitting in hot rooms because one woman wanted a cleaner sunset view. Paula Keen closed her laptop and faced the room. "As vice president," she said, voice tight but steady, "I am moving to suspend all Western View restoration activity immediately, freeze any related payments, and request independent counsel for the HOA." Marlene turned on her. You do not have authority to do that. Paula lifted the printed bylaws. Section 5.4 allows emergency board action when association liability is imminent. A few residents clapped. Not loud, not happy. Just relieved somebody at that table was finally reading the rules. By noon, Rachel had filed the first civil notice. By 2, Sheriff Barrett's incident report was attached to the insurance claim. By 4, the HOA's carrier had sent a reservation of rights letter questioning coverage because the work had been knowingly performed outside recorded HOA property. That phrase spread through Mesa Vista faster than the outage had. Outside recorded HOA property. By evening, residents began filing their own claims. Hotel receipts, spoiled groceries, generator rentals, damaged medical supplies, lost work, emergency transport. Every number had a name behind it, and every name pointed back to the same signed order. Marlene stopped answering calls before sunset. The repairs took longer than people wanted, but shorter than I feared. Owen's crew replaced the severed sensor bundle, flushed the cooling loop, pressure tested the cabinet, and restarted the relay system section by section. I stood beside them the whole time, not because they needed me, but because that system had been built out of a promise I made to June on the worst night of our lives. At 6:48 p.m., Owen gave me the nod. Bring it up slow. I engaged the relay bank. The cooling fan started first, then the circulation pump, then the low vibration behind the barn returned, steady and familiar, like a heartbeat coming back under a doctor's hand. June closed her eyes. I knew what she was hearing. Not machinery. Safety. Across the ridge, Mesa Vista came back in pieces. One street, then another. Porch lights blinking awake. Garage lamps. Kitchen windows. The clubhouse sign. The front gate motor groaned, reset itself, and opened all the way for the first time since the blackout. Nobody cheered from my ranch. That was not the kind of victory this was. 2 days later, Marlene resigned in a 3-sentence email that blamed miscommunication, unfortunate timing, and hostile outside influences. Paula forwarded it to Rachel, who forwarded it to me with only one line. She still does not know how paper works. A week after that, the county issued a written order confirming Mesa Vista had no enforcement rights, access rights, scenic easement, or maintenance authority over Calder Ranch. Any future HOA entry required written permission from me or a court order. Warren Bell read that order on my porch, smiled once, and said, "Fence lines still matter." Tyler Briggs came by the next morning with his father. They apologized in person and handed Rachel every remaining copy of their work file. I did not blame the kid. He had made a mistake, then made a choice. Those are different things. The HOA paid for the emergency repairs. Their insurance fought them on part of it. Residents kept pressure on the board until the old beautification committee was dissolved. Paula became acting president and sent me a formal letter acknowledging that Mesa Vista had no authority over my land. I framed that one. Not in the house. In the relay shed. Right beside the permit binder Marlene never bothered to ask for. 3 weeks later, I was in the machine barn again when the west relay fan kicked on at dusk. The sound rolled low behind the wall, steady as it had been before everything went sideways. June brought 2 glasses of iced tea and stood with me at the fence. Across the ridge, Mesa Vista was lit house by house. Quiet, humbled. Still there because the system Marlene hated had done its job as long as it could, then told the truth when she broke it. June looked at me. "Do you feel better?" I thought about Marlene's smile beside the cut conduit, Tyler setting down the cutters, Owen saying those were not pipes, Paula reading the bylaws, Rachel sliding that final notice across the table. Then I looked at the gray conduit, repaired and tagged twice as clearly as before. "I feel finished," I said. The sun dropped behind Mesa Vista, turning the windows gold for a few seconds before the dark took the hill again. This time, the lights stayed on. I stood beside June, listening to the hum behind my barn, and said what I should have said the moment Marlene reached for that clipboard. Some people only respect the wires after the lights go out.
And that is the lesson I carry from that whole mess. Before you tear something down, just because you do not like the way it looks, you had better understand and it hold up. A fence line, a permit, a quiet system behind the pen, even an old warning task, those things may not look important to first passing by, but sometimes they are the reason everything else still works. I did not need anyone to clap for me. I did not need Marlene to admit every mistake. What mattered I was the two were documented, the land was respected, and the people who depended on that power finally understood what had been protecting them all along. There is dignity in standing your ground without losing yourself. There is strength in staying calm long enough for the paper, the facts, and the right witnesses to speak. So let me ask you this, if someone rushed onto your land and acted like their opinion mattered more than you did, would you stay quiet? Or would you stand your ground the right way? Type yes in the comments if you would have held that line. And if you enjoy stories about land, rights, relations, and ordinary people refusing to be pushed around, subscribe and stay with us. There are more stories coming from the Range Road.